This time on the Highland Woodworker.
Connecting up, and it's been really wonderful for me.
Handworks 2015. We'll take you inside this homegrown hand tool event in Iowa.
So you always set the best wood aside to become bows, in hopes that everything that won't make a bow will still make nice spindles.
While we were there, we spent a moment with master Windsor chair and toolmaker Peter Galbert.
You go along here, and you want to give it some pressure, come down on it, and take it nice and slow.
Transferring detailed interior patterns on a board can be tricky. Popwood's David Thiel has a solution that I think really has some teeth. All of this and more this time on the Highland Woodworker. Hello, I'm Charles Brock, and I'm a Highland Woodworker. I just love coming to Highland Woodworking in Atlanta, Georgia. It's where I get all my fine woodworking tools and a great woodworking education. Well, there's my friend Ed Sen.
Hey Chuck, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. Recently, Ed, we went out to Handworks near Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and we attended a great event out there. And I ran into a friend of yours, Peter Galbert.
Peter Galbert, Master Windsor Chairmaker. He's quite a talent.
I hear he's got a new book, and I came to pick one up.
I'd be delighted to show it to you. It's an amazing, amazing book.
Well, before we do that, I would like to take you out to Handworks and show you why it's a great event for every woodworker.
Look forward to it.
We're in the Amana Colonies near Cedar Rapids, Iowa for Handworks 2015. If you're a woodworker, especially a hand tool woodworker, this is the place for you. Let's go inside and I'll show you why.
It's great. Who would think there'd be this many folks gathered for this? And I don't think years ago there'd be anything like this.
When you started, you could have filled up a corner of the room.
It's just people connecting up, and it's been really wonderful for me. My only regret, I wish I'd been here 2 years ago for the first one. But we're here now, and what a wonderful bit of work they've done.
I think that this event is going to be the Woodstock of it. That about all the people here, they're going to tell their kids they were here, and there are going to be lots of people who aren't here, who said they were here, and it's that kind of growth. I think it's kind of really a watershed tipping point for the craft, and in a good way.
This place is amazing. It's the first time I've been here, so it's been non-stop people coming through, and just a lot of communication, a lot of fun, a lot of laughter, and a lot of chips flying.
And it's not really just about some sort of hand tool purity. Is that handwork really can just allow you to do things that machine work can't take you. Mm-hmm. So it's not anti-machine. It's just trying everybody to take our craft to the next level with these tools.
And look at all the interest, and hopefully people are going home and they're using their hand tools and they're getting more involved in their project and in the wood and life.
And supporting all of these folks who've set up a small business making tools and innovating, because they're not all traditional hand tools. There's a lot of the progress and invention is being made here. Sorry, in other words, the game isn't over. It's carrying on, and that's a great thing to see.
My shooting board, I've designed as many features in the shooting board as I can think of, has very accurate miters, both picture frame miters, and they register with diamond pins into these bushings, locks down with a mag jig because there's a steel plate underneath it, and I can get these beautiful miters that fit tight like that. That's the way we want our miters to work.
My name is Bob Zajac, and we make layout tools for woodworkers, and we've been in business for about 10 years now. We started in June of 2005. It's making marking knives for local woodworkers in the Georgia Woodworking Guild, and since then we've branched out into we probably have about maybe 15 to 17 plus item tool line right now.
Well, I've come all the way over from Australia to be here at this event, and I'm thrilled to be here. I design and manufacture a small range of precision hand tools, measuring and marking tools.
Yeah.
So tri-squares with the support tab here. This tab clicks in and out. It holds itself up on the board. You can buy anything from a full match set down to an individual tool, also the sliding bevels. The sliding bevels and the tri-squares, they're kind of my flagship products. And then we have these neat little double squares as well. Very, very handy for dovetailing, machine setup. And a bit of a product launch here at Handworks 2015. The inch version is the first time they've been available, just for you Americans.
Oh, yeah.
So this is the new jack with the wave grip. So the front grip allows multiple different ways to hold it. So if I'm on the edge of a board, I'll grab it like this with my fingers trailing as a fence.
Sure.
If I'm in the middle of, say, a workbench or a tabletop, I'll grab it like that. So it allows many different ways to hold it, and just kind of expands the usefulness of the plane even that much more. So.
And I love the way your hand can wrap back here around it. It's got a place for it.
It's all about being ergonomic. I want it to be comfortable in the long run when someone's doing if you're planing a full tabletop with this plane, you don't want to wear out. You don't want to get exhausted planing it. So one of the nice things with a wooden plane is it's lighter than a metal body counterpart of the same size. So you can get a lot less fatigue.
I make marking gauges. They're the special thing about these gauges are the blade design. The way it is designed to pull the fence tight against the work and lay a very accurate line. The design is low profile and allows the user to use the gauge on the bench instead of trying to hang it over the edge where it's unbalanced, unsafe. It's a wonderful tool. It comes in many different species, colors. They're nice tools.
That's my book.
All right.
It surprises me how much there is about sharpening, and it also surprises me how much anxiety there is in the woodworking community about sharpening. If you look at internet forums, there's always somebody asking about sharpening questions, and some of them are extremely basic, so there's a lot of anxiety about how do I do it, what do I need to do it, all of that. So at some point I figured it was time to write the book. And what I've tried to do is, rather than simply teach you how to, rather than give you the fish, I'm trying to teach you how to fish. So I try to talk about the absolute basics of what is the steel, what are the abrasives, what are the bevel angles and the fundamentals of what makes a blade cut wood properly, and then how do you get there from here. So there's 3 chapters or 4 chapters on those absolute basic materials things, and then I go into the how-to on how to sharpen the various different blades, etc.
So this is what I call the dovetailing square, and it's very useful for when you have dovetails that have really tight pins. When you're making sure that these are square to the face, because you can have it off. If it's not square to your face of your board, or that your baseline isn't square, you're going to have ugly gaps when you put your joint together.
And you can't get this in there.
No, you can't get the regular rule. I mean, when you have a tight one, there's no way. Well, this one slipped in, but you can't accurately get all of it.
That's right.
So it's very helpful for the woodworkers though when they're trying to make sure that their joints are going to go together without any gaps.
Probably the best thing we do is that we size our handles via CNC to achieve a predictable, accurate sizing method akin to shoe sizing. So this particular handle is a size small, and we offer handles for all of our saws ranging from extra small through extra large. And let's face it, we all have different sized hands just like we have different sized feet. Why should we saw with a handle that doesn't fit?
Well, Mark Hicks at Plate 11 makes just a beautiful Roubeau-style split-top workbench, and this just draws my eye right here. Place to put the tools. Tell us about it.
Well, that is a combination tool rack, planing stop, and then it can be removed to give you a place to drop a clamp through the center of the bench to clamp something in the middle of what you're working on.
Yeah. Do you want to show us how?
Sure. So, planing stop is the rails are let into the bottom edge of the planing stop, so you can pick it up, slide it over, and it gives you something to push against if you're traversing a board. Yeah. And you can drop a dog in here and have a nice angle to push into the corner with.
And so you're not going to get that twist.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
That is just marvelous. And of course, it's a tool well. I mean, you can stick your tools.
Yeah, you can drop a chisel in there or a saw, and when you're done with it, you don't need to plane anymore. You just slide it over and it drops right down.
Blue Spruce Tools. You make these and they're beautiful. Tell us about your line.
Oh, thank you. I make a lot of tools for joinery, layout, and chisels and mallets and marking tools and things like that. This is one of my most popular marking knives. It's a little one for doing boxes and small drawers and things like that. It's very popular. And I just came out with a new line of dovetail marking gauges. So you got two sides, one's at 90 degrees for making your cross cuts, and then different tapers, 8-to-1, 6-to-1, 4-to-1 for marking out your dovetails.
Sure.
And another item that's very popular are my dovetail chisels. They're lighter weight chisels than a normal bench chisel, and they work extremely well for doing dovetails and finish work, and anytime you're doing your finest pairing.
Did you buy anything?
Not yet. I'm going to.
Kind of considering your options.
Yeah, the Benchcraft advice is pretty tempting.
Did you buy anything?
Yes and no.
Yeah, we won't tell the wife.
Too many things.
All right, well, we won't tell the wife. This will just be shown all over the world to thousands of woodworkers, but don't worry about it. Don't let her see it.
Peter's book's over here, Chuck. It's just quite an amazing volume. Peter did all the illustrations in it, and he's an amazing artist. He has a fine arts degree background. But his knowledge of methods, tools, and materials is just bar none. And this book, I think, is going to be great for the next generation of Windsor chair makers to figure out how to build a Windsor chair.
I've heard it's a classic. I can't wait to get home and start reading this. Just beautiful drawings. Thank you, Ed.
Enjoy.
Coming up.
You might remember something like this when you were typing with carbon paper.
See why a trip to the office supply store could save a lot of hassle when dealing with patterns.
I looked back later and realized that was a real epiphany moment for me. It just took me about 10 years to figure it out.
Hear about the first time master chair maker Peter Galbert was introduced to woodworking. Don't go anywhere. You're watching the Highland Woodworker.
I'm just an average, down-to-earth woodworker. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably about a 5. But one place I score a perfect 10 is right here, and I plan on keeping all 10. That's why I have a saw-stop table saw. And there's more. Plenty of power, superior dust collection, and absolute accuracy. These features have made it the best-selling cabinet saw in America. Let Highland Woodworking help you put a saw stop in your shop.
What is quality? Is it quick? Forgettable? Easy? No, it isn't quick or easy. It isn't forgettable. Quality takes work. It takes time. Quality lasts. And it starts at Bell Forest, a leading global supplier of figured and exotic woods. Order online at bellforestproducts.com.
Introducing the ultimate flush trim router bit by Whiteside. Get CNC quality cuts from your patterns every time. Whiteside, industrial grade and American made. Forest, manufacturer of the award-winning Woodworker 2, presents the PVW blade, designed specifically for the rip and cross-cutting of plywood and plywood veneers without splintering or chip-outs. Highland Woodworking has been a leader in woodworking education for over 30 years. They offer all kinds of woodworking classes year-round, ranging from how to hand-cut dovetails and mortises, to how to sharpen a plane or a chisel, how to build a cabinet, a chair, or a bookcase, or how to turn a wooden bowl. There are classes on wood finishing, French polishing, and even antique furniture restoration. For a list of upcoming classes that may interest you, go to highlandwoodworking.com. Getting detailed patterns on your wood can be a bit dicey, but our pal David Thiel comes through for us again with some awesome advice, this time on Popular Woodworking's tips, tricks, and techniques. Well, I know you've done a lot of carving, and I've done a little bit. And sure. The hardest thing is going from the pattern, especially if you've got a lot of details, to the board. How do you do it?
Well, there's a lot of different ways you can do it, and obviously taking an outside pattern is easy. That you just take the shape and you cut it out with scissors, lay it down, and you're done. But those interior details are always the ones that are the hard thing. You can't take your eyes and move it to the paper and move it to the wood. It doesn't work that way. So historically, lots of different ways that have done it. I mean, maybe you might remember something like this. When you were typing with carbon paper, oh my gosh, they still make it. Did you know that? Even in our electronic age.
That's amazing. I haven't seen any of this
I
in
know.
a while.
You can still go to any of the hardware, the office supply stores, and get carbon paper. They still have it. And actually, it's a little nicer than it used to be. It's not quite as coming off in your fingers. So that's one way that works, okay? But pretty much you're going to get black. So if you're working on walnut, that's not going to show up so well.
Right.
So you want something that's a little bit different. Something that was shown to me by a friend, Alf Sharp, was very clever, is you take a pattern, and this is actually a nice Goddard Townsend knee that's got some detail to it. So there's your pattern, but how do you get those details back onto the wood? You could, again, use the carbon paper, but it's the wrong color. Now, he showed us something called a pounce wheel that we actually stole from the sewing industry.
Ah.
They use it to transfer patterns onto cloth as well, and you'll notice that the teeth are sharp, and that's important. Actually, let me show you. There are other wheels out there that are for transferring patterns that actually have flats on them. That's not what you want. If you want, what we want to do is go through the paper to the wood.
Actually, poke a little hole.
Poke little holes, and let me show you. We can go along here, and you want to give it some pressure, come down on it, and take it nice and slow, and let the teeth bite in. Now there's our outside. And the nice thing about it being a wheel is you can actually turn too. And you can come back and do some of this interior. And again, pressure, pushing down, take it nice and easy.
The only problem I see with that is when you remove the paper, you've got to find all the little holes.
Really?
Yeah.
You're right, those holes are hard to see. Look at that. I mean, they're there, but depending on the wood, it's going to disappear.
You can kind of trace it off, but you might go blind in the process. Is there a way to make those stand out?
Well, you know, in the sewing industry, they actually use what's called a pounce pad that's got chalk-like material on it that you pounce through. Yeah. I don't have one of those, but most shops have. Right. Conveniently enough, I've got some chalk line.
Oh, yes.
And I've got some cheesecloth, and I've making my own little pounce pattern. So get it on there, mix it in, and then you take it off and the reveal. The lines show up better because now they're blue.
Ah,
of course, you can get red chalk, whatever you want to do, whatever contrast you're working with on the material. It shows up that pattern much easier. Now you're still going to want to come back with a pencil. I know. Once that chalk's gone, you're in trouble. Exactly.
All right, I was about to mess it up.
Tight,
yeah,
yes.
right.
So we're going to want to come back with a pencil and connect those dots. But again, this is not an expensive tool, maybe 10 bucks if that. If you do a lot of pattern work, it makes a lot of sense to have it. And
just
it
make
bites
sure
right
you
through.
Get the sharp teeth.
Keep your teeth sharp, that's right.
A tip from Al Sharp.
Yeah, correct, absolutely, and we appreciate his information. So that was something to think about. What can we steal or borrow from other industries, other hobbies that play into our world and make things a lot easier?
That's a good one. Thank you, my friend.
Happy to share.
Still ahead.
It just became a good way for me to make a living. I started working with different cabinet makers and furniture makers just as a helper, really.
A moment with Peter Galbert. You're watching the Highland Woodworker.
Making wood surfboards is something that goes back hundreds of years. I think what I love about making surfboards out of wood is that they are really, really beautiful. Each and every board is completely different, individualized. The advantage that we have now in making Hollywood surfboards is that we have very advanced woodworking tools. I'm Patrick Burnett. I make wood surfboards in Komaki, Cape Town.
Are your tools Tormek sharp? Tormek, consistent, reliable, and razor sharp. Tormek,
Sharpening innovation.
Craig, from the first cut to the final assembly, providing woodworkers with products that help simplify woodworking challenges. Craig.
Rycon Power Tools, a leader in woodworking power tools for over 10 years with a passion for quality and performance at an affordable price. Rycon has a full line of dependable tools, including a long list of industry-leading bandsaws like their powerful 10 351 14-inch Professional. Rycon Power Tools, tools designed by woodworkers.
If you can't make it to Atlanta, then you can always shop us on the web at www.highlandwoodworking.com. Moment with the Master is presented by Triton Precision Power Tools. Peter Galbert's booth was a big hit at Handworks this year, showcasing his impressive chairs, unique tools, and eye-catching demonstrations. We had a chance to spend a moment with this master while we were there. When we first met, you were working with Curtis Buchanan
sure.
in Atlanta, and so you really spent a lot of time studying Windsor chairs and methods and so forth, and so then all of a sudden I saw from you these beautiful pictures of contemporary Windsor chair adaptations. Tell me about how you're marrying the your artistic background to taking the Windsor chair in maybe a new way.
Yeah, well, I do think that the art education has helped a lot in that it's a good education in looking. You learn how to look at things and see them as a whole, and you know, sculpturally, I took a lot of and made a lot of sculptures. And when you start looking at the world that way, you can apply it to just about anything. It could be food, it could be furniture, it could be whatever. You're going to look at it and sort of have that eye handy. So I feel very indebted to that, as well as to other great makers like Curtis or David Sawyer or Jeff Miller, who have really taken things and made some beautiful, elegant pieces. I just think the success doesn't lie within measuring up against an old idea, but the idea you set out to create. And if you're succeeding with your idea as you hope to experience and realize it, then it's successful.
You have a new book out, and you're always coming out with new tools and things. I kind of wonder what makes Peter Galbert click. When you were a kid, what did you do? What were you like?
I was always horsing around trying to make things work and take things apart and figure things out. Yeah, it's always been a part of what I enjoyed. I always liked drawing, making things, It always just seemed to be if you left me alone long enough, I'd start making something out of something. So it's always pretty natural, always enjoyable for me.
So you've never really been lonely because you had something to do?
Yeah, that's a problem. I can be left alone for weeks on end and not notice it. Yeah, it's not a good thing always. So, yeah.
Well, that's great. And in your work there, I've seen your illustrations. Beautiful illustrations.
Well, thank you.
I mean, you're kind of just so multi-talented. So, as a kid, what was your first time with wood? I mean, where you kind of made something, had an idea, and made something?
I guess. There was my grandfather made a few things, not a lot. He was a World War II pilot, and he made some cool planes out of things like balsa wood, some beautiful actual flying model airplanes. And I remember he encouraged me, but I didn't do a lot then, but it gave me a chance to play. I'd go into his workshop a little bit and play. But other than that, I had a little experience in school that was actually pretty profound. In 7th grade, I went into the workshop and just loved it. I never got back into there because I was on a different track in school. But I looked back later and realized that was a real epiphany moment for me. It just took me about 10 years to figure it out.
Everybody's trying to find themselves.
Yeah,
and
exactly. Took a while.
Thank goodness you found yourself pretty early. In school, you had this particular moment, and then you got an education.
I was involved in art education. I was taking my drawing, figuring that was a good place to start moving forward. But as I was drawing and painting, I found myself building things in the school wood shop, like stretchers and paint boxes. And then pretty soon I realized I was having more fun doing that than I was the actual painting. And I was probably even better at it than I was with the actual painting. And one of my painting teachers even encouraged me. He saw a paint box I'd made and said that I should think about woodwork. And he was right. So it just became a good way for me to make a living. I started working with different cabinet makers and furniture makers just as a helper, really, until I started picking up enough to start being more of a journeyman, moving around different shops and doing things like that.
Sure. And at some point, you stumbled upon chairs and kind of left the world of flatboarders.
Yeah, I was having a tough time maintaining my interest in the flatboards. I just think it just got to be a little monotonous because I was spending, it was production work. So you spend 8 to 12 hours, working on a table saw, and it just never got more interesting for me. So I was always interested in hand tools. I always wanted to know how people did it before the power tools. And the key was finding a thing to create where the power tools didn't suit. In other words, the hand tools had the advantage. And it turns out that these chairs, that's exactly right. They afford you the ability to make the chairs differently in a way that adds advantage to the end product and the process. So you just work so differently that I found that I didn't need those saws anymore. I have a table saw, but it's over at a friend's house. I go over about once every 3 or 4 months to saw something up. I just don't need it around because it just doesn't suit the kind of work I like doing.
Sure. And now, you have a great reputation as a tool maker too, and that kind of came out of the chair making to try to meet your needs.
Well, yeah, there just weren't a lot of chair makers' tools. There was a lot of tools that were adapted by chair makers to work for them, but it turned out they were really specifically made for other purposes. And the more I was working with the tools, the more I realized that there were specific things we were lacking. And really, when I was teaching is when it came to be the biggest deal, because I would see students struggle with these adapted tools and realize how much better they might do with a tool that was purpose-made. And that sort of got me started. And also, when I started, I didn't have any money, so I made a lot of my own tools. I investigated what they were and just did whatever I could. And I realized that at the heart of it, it's a very simple process. And so making the tools is pretty simple as well.
So undoubtedly, you figured out some way to hold this to make it easier.
Oh no, this is an old idea. This is an idea I got from my friend David Sawyer. He showed me one of these years ago, and it's just a great holding device because you can hold it at a number of different angles. And the idea here is I need to be able to exert some force on this, not just splitting it, but to create leverage so I can direct the split where I might want it to go.
It just happens that it's in the right place. You don't have to bend over.
Exactly, yeah. You'll see body position is key to just about everything if you're going to use hand tools.
It sure is.
Yeah, if you're not in the right position, you can't do it.
Well, let's see some chips flying.
Okay, all right. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm going to be splitting out a bow for a balloon back chair, which is about a 1 inch by 1 inch square. So I have to come up with a bit of a strategy for how I can get the most out of this piece, which is a bit of a wedge shape. So I'm probably going to start out here by putting this, which is called a fro, right here in the end. And I'm going to drop this in here. Now the idea here is that whichever side of this bends more, that's the way the split is going to run. So if I can go in here slowly and get them both to bend less, I'm going to more successfully go straight down the line. But if it does start to run one way or the other, I can use a little bit of leverage here by standing right here to get it to run straight again. One interesting thing you'll find is I could even take a much larger piece and it would split very easily as long as the two sides are even. Or you could take a small piece and it's very difficult to split if they're uneven because all the force runs to the small side. So the small side becomes a spring and it takes all the force, and then when you push on that small side to support it, once again the run will go straight.
Wow.
So I just want to basically give this thing time to unzip right down the line. And just keep an eye on both sides. And you see I'm putting some force on here to try and direct it just a little bit so I can make sure I get 1 inch all the way down the line. There we go. And then as I get down to the end, I got to make sure my brake isn't keeping it from splitting open. But the idea is it's more of a patience than brawn game if you want to get the nice even splits to come off. And you can see that I was pretty successful here, and that when you look at this, you're looking at a growth ring that runs the entire length of the board there.
Yes, so you got tremendous strength because the grain is all in alignment.
Exactly, it's very workable at that point too. Yeah, it's nice green stuff we got here. This is white oak.
Yeah.
And so I see I got a knot here, so that's not going to make it. This side will probably be spindles then. So as I split my next pieces out, I'm going to try and bias them so that I can get the most without getting that little knot in there. And hope then I can get 3 out of it after that. So you always set the best wood aside to become bows in hopes that everything that won't make a bow will still make nice spindles.
Right.
There we go. So it just unzips right down the line here. We'll get some nice spindles out of that piece. And then I'll get at least 2 bows out of this piece, and maybe even a spindle or 2. We'll see. See, that's really handy because now I can put it up high. That's the brilliance of Mr. Sawyer's design here. So let's see if I can get 3 out of this. That might be pushing it, but I'll make sure I get 2 one way or the other. There we go. Gets a little small on the other end to get 2 out of here, but this will make a really nice bow for me right there.
Yeah.
And then I'll probably just trim a little excess off of here. And you can see here when I do this one, this will show us something about splitting in general, which is the way that when you're splitting a small bit off, it's actually harder than when you're splitting big stuff. You'll see what I mean in a moment here. So you see how one side wants to do all the moving, and that's the problem. If that one side is doing all the moving, then all the stress is going to run that way.
It'll run out.
Right, so what I have to do is I have to support that and try and make it so that bend is even. And if that bend is even, then the wood actually doesn't know how much mass is on either side.
So you can kind of pull back just a little bit.
Yeah, what I'm doing is I'm supporting one side and stressing the other, and that's going to keep that running nice and straight, hopefully.
Wow. So it's amazing how small you can work with this.
Oh, you can get very close to the point where you almost have no work with your drawing knife left to do.
Wow.
Yeah. And that looks like it's going to run out on me. So what I have the option of is coming back in from the other side and hopefully meeting up with it. And you're just trying to save a little time with the draw knife here. There it goes. And also, this makes a different kind of firewood than the shaving, so this will burn a little differently.
Yeah.
But you see, you get that little bit off of there, and this will make a nice bow now. That's ready to go.
What do you see for your future? You know, everybody's got to have a new plan, and I know you have one because you just keep developing.
Well, I do want to keep teaching. I really enjoy the teaching. It's spurred me on a lot to think new thoughts and come up with new ideas, and you never teach a class where you don't learn. So I'm going to keep with the teaching for sure, but I'm also looking forward to being more of a maker again, just getting back to the shop and finishing some chairs for clients, and hopefully making some new ones that have been on the drawing board, and hopefully that'll take me through the next couple of years and see what happens. Maybe start a new book someday.
Well, what would you like for your legacy to be? I mean, to be remembered by. I mean, this is a very unique craft and art. What would you like for people to remember about it?
Well, hopefully I've made people's work easier to perform, help them to feel more skillful and interested and capable. I'm mainly self-taught. I've only got 2 weeks of training, and as such, it's a tough road, and when things are difficult, you feel quite alone. And so I would hope that my legacy would be that people feel like there's a place to turn where, if I can't give them all the answers, but, some encouragement and some help along the way.
Well, it was wonderful to get up with Peter Galbert at Handworks. Peter is just an excellent artist through and through. And thanks to Ed Cent, we were able to get a copy of his book from Highland Woodworking, and it's everything I thought it would be. Peter started illustrations for this book over 6 years ago and started putting together the material about that time too. It's the new iconic How to Make a Windsor Chair. It also has some great woodworking information that every woodworker would need in their shop. Well, as you can see, Peter Galbert's book, Chairmaker's Notebook, is just a great addition for your library and for your workshop.
Improve your woodworking experience. Sign up for Wood News Online, a monthly newsletter showcasing the latest news, tips, and classes Highland Woodworking has to offer. By signing up, you'll receive the latest episode of the Highland Woodworker, special store promotions, and Wood News Online delivered straight to your inbox. Sign up today.
Well, that does it for this episode of the Highland Woodworker. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. And until next time, I'm Charles Brock, and I'm a Highland Woodworker.